Armim ka Adonai ki dili tani. Adonai Elohai la'olam odeka amen. I will extol you, O Lord, for you have drawn me up. O Lord my God, I will give thanks to you forever. Amen. So as I told the kids, we're starting a whole new sermon series today where we're going to take 5 weeks and look at those membership vows that we all have taken for those members of this United Methodist congregation, of what it means to be United Methodist in a way, what it means that you say that you will do in order to faithfully participate in the ministries of this church. Faithfully participate, hence being the name of the sermon series. So today we're going to start by looking at perhaps the part of the membership vows that we are all least familiar with. We're going to talk about faithfully participating in the life of the church through our witness. And I say it's probably one that we're least familiar with because it actually was added not too long ago. I think it was added in 2012, though I could be wrong with that. So any Methodist scholars on Linda, don't correct me. My mother-in-law might know better than I would. Anyway, it is also, I think, perhaps the hardest of the membership vows as a blanket statement for most Minnesotans. It's just a part of who we are that we don't like to talk about who we are. Or at least that's the sense that I have gotten from Minnesotans. You know, you ask them how they're doing today, and everybody will tell you, oh, I'm doing just fine. And then you ask them what they've been up to, and they're not going to tell you too much about it. I think nothing causes Minnesotans, as a blanket statement, but also a lot of people to get more nervous about talking than to ask them to talk about faith. And if you disagree with me, I would love to come have you stand in this position and I'll listen to you talk for the next 10 minutes. No takers? Cool. So what I will say, though, is talking about our faith doesn't have to be so scary. It doesn't have to be the end-all, scary, wake up in deep nightmares kinds of experiences. I'm going to step back. So when I talk about this part of the membership vows in confirmation, much like I did with the kids, I usually ask them what it means to be a witness, right? And actually my confirmation kids give me the exact same responses that our kids gave me. It's somebody who sees a crime. Think about that. When we talk about witnesses, that's the context that we have for that. We see things all the time, but we don't talk about witnessing all of those things. What we talk about are the people who witnessed things that are going wrong, who witnessed the murders, the thefts, the people getting in trouble, and then talk about it in a court of law. I suspect most people are familiar with that more in the crime drama sense than anything else. But I'm going to say, our faith is not a crime. Why is it important that we witness? I still think it's a good analogy, because to witness to our faith is to tell other people the things that we've experienced. It's simply sharing the story of our faith. And it's something that we can do, but sometimes is a little intimidating. So in the Gospel of Luke, we hear of a time when Jesus taught the disciples how to witness, which is what today's text is. It is essentially Jesus telling the disciples, here's how to go out and share your faith. The first thing I want to point out is there are 72 disciples that Jesus is sending out, not 12. That's a lot of people. And Jesus is like, go out in pairs and do the amazing work that I have for you to do. Go into a town, enter a house, and offer them your peace. May the peace of God be with you. And if it sits and dwells in the house, then stay. And if it doesn't and they react poorly, then go, and that's okay. And tell them about God's kingdom. Tell them the stories that you have experienced. Tell them the things that you have seen and how God is at work in that. And if they receive you, great. Have a seat, eat some food, and enjoy creating relationship and being a part of that and telling the stories more fully so that they too may come to see and experience and witness to the power of God. And if not, and I love this part, walk out into the town square and shake the dust off your feet and leave town. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Man. Anyway, when the disciples all return, the first thing they do is they tell Jesus how amazing this experience was. Wouldn't you love that? I'm going to send you out in groups of two to go and do evangelism in West St. Paul, and you're going to come back and tell me how cool it is. Anybody running for the hills yet? But they tell the stories, the miracles that happened, the people that heard their stories and were receptive. And Jesus' response is to rejoice. Of course, I saw Satan fall from heaven, and it's an amazing thing, and this is awesome. I think the challenge in that is for us to do the same thing. Sharing faith can be intimidating. We're not always sure what to say, not always sure how we're going to be perceived. Like, am I going to be related to that crazy televangelist now? Are people going to want to talk to me? They're not sure how you're going to be received. Are people going to yell at me? What will happen? I'm going to say, as clergy, I feel all of that as well. How are people going to experience me when I tell them that I'm a pastor? That in and of itself can be crazy intimidating at days. And yet, we vow to participate in the ministries of the church through our witness. We promise to each other and to God that we are going to participate in the ministries of this church through telling our stories to others. So how do we do that? First, I think the most important thing to do is to find a way that feels authentic to you. Find a way that feels comfortable, not I'm sitting on my couch and not doing anything comfortable, but doesn't feel like the end of the world as we know it. If you're not a crazy extrovert who likes using a bullhorn, don't go stand on the corner with a bullhorn and yell at everybody who drives by that they have to join us on Zoom on Sunday mornings. That's not going to work for you. Maybe tell your friends and your family, whoever you're talking to on the phone or posting on Facebook, about that cool thing that happened at church this week. Or that funny, thought-provoking, amazing thing that your pastor said 5 days ago that you just can't get out of your head. Tell the stories. Tell the things that are going on in your life to the people around you and see where that goes. Jesus says, offer peace, the peace of God to you, to others, Commit to pray for a coworker who's having a bad day, even if you haven't so much talked about that faith thing yet. I can remember when I was in the hospital having Bryce, and we called the anesthetist in because it was time for the meds. I'm just going to say, pain meds are a good thing in childbirth. As I am lying on the bed, getting maneuvered around to get the IVs, Jeff is standing there talking to the anesthetist. Oh, you live in Sauk Center, you should come to church. It was totally authentic to him. I was sitting back going, are you kidding me? But at the same time, that was a powerful thing. I remember it 8 years later. Perhaps she does too. Share the stories. Talk about your faith. The people who are most likely to share and invite others to church are the people who have just joined the church, the people who are 6 months in on this church thing. They talk about it all the time because it's new and exciting, and it's different. Someday ask me about my Instant Pot. I will tell you all the things, right? If you've been a member of the church, the longer you've been a member of the church, the less likely you are to talk about it because you don't pay attention as much to the excitement. Cool, we've got a supply parade coming up next week. You're not going to believe what my church is doing. Next to the next point. If the other person is interested and wants to hear more, awesome. Have the conversation. Keep talking. If they don't, that's okay. That may not be where they're at. Say, that's fine, and move on. Statistics show that most people, when approached with a story of faith, aren't offended. If they don't share that faith, that they're not offended by it. They're not instantly turned off by talking to that person. They're just recognize that that's a part of who the person they're talking to is. And when we remember that, coupled with the fact that we will never know if somebody has faith or is seeking faith if we don't ask, I think that means the most important part of faith becomes witnessing to the power of God in our lives. Being able to reach out and do the amazing things that God has for us. So share your story. Remember those times where you've experienced God, and then When people react positively, come back and say, you're not going to believe this amazing conversation I had with my hairdresser or the clerk at the grocery store or the person who was handing me the Panera through my window because I don't go into stores anymore. Tell those stories and let that fuel your witness even more and the power that God has in reaching out and showing love. Let us be witnesses. Let us live out our faith and share those experiences with others. Let us be a church that faithfully participates in the ministry of God through our witness of God's actions in the world. Amen.